line. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
Whoa. How about that? Are you there? Did we listen to the right amount?
Yo, what up? All right, my mic was muted, of course, in the recording because, god damn it, if we can't just have a flawless intro. And yes, we absolutely did listen to the correct amount. It does. The transmission is then lost on that. So
That was an intense call.
definitely.
Did that guy know Art?
Art Bell? He did. Well, he knows. Do you know who Art Bell is?
No.
First of all, who the fuck are we and what are we doing?
Oh, well, this is the Decrypted podcast where we talk about weird shit. And sometimes we talk about athletes that do drugs before playing athletics.
We definitely did that once.
We did.
So
Probably do it again sometime.
Yeah, but we can revamp the episode. I'm sure we'll do like a revisited album. You know, like when bands get really famous and they kind of like re-put out their first album because nobody fucking listened to it. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
The first like 5 episodes, 10 episodes.
Or remastering old movies.
And don't worry about our introductions. My name is Justin. That is Seth. Seth's a little under the weather, so for those of you looking for the video feed, he's very ugly right now, so he didn't want to be put on camera. So I didn't want to discard from his imagery with my handsomeness. So I also put up a little picture of me, and that's what you're going to be looking at today for the video. So
I would still say that I'm more handsome than 70 to 80% of the population, but I just wasn't up to my standards.
Yeah. You had your what did you call your glasses?
My pedophile glasses.
Well, welcome to the Decrypted podcast, everybody. And yes, what we were just listening to go back to our conversation earlier, Art Bell was the original. He was actually started the Art Bell Show, which then later became Coast to Coast AM, which is a radio broadcast, which is now hosted by the guy whose name is totally coming to a blank. God damn it. I know his name, and I hope everybody listens to can just put it in the comments in the YouTube feed. But Coast to Coast AM is a very, very popular show where a bunch of people come on and share stories about UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot, a lot of really awesome stuff. It's a really sweet show. You should listen to a few episodes of it. But Art Bell was the original guy that was in that. So
where is it?
George Norrie. George Norrie was the guy. I'm pretty sure it's a subscription-based radio show at this point. Like
it was satellite radio or something.
Yeah, it was on AM radio for a while. But so what we were listening to there is this guy calling at random, because you could call in on the Coast to Coast AM and kind of share your stories. The man's name, it's like Fayip D. Oyad. I don't really understand where they got the name from.
So he
Uh,
calls in. So he calls in the show. So I've to our listeners, I have never heard that call before. Nor have I heard of this morning show before or anything like that. I'm definitely more open minded towards aliens and extraterrestrials than a lot of the other stuff that we're going to talk about here. With that being said, so so yeah, so that was just a random guy calling in, uh, completely freaking out, right?
yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So he
okay.
has this little episode, and then the satellite feed ends because you would think that his position was triangulated, as he describes in the earlier part of the phone call.
Oh, so they were like, the extra dimensional aliens were coming for him.
The government was coming for him for speaking
Oh,
out about the
government was coming.
extraterrestrial aliens that are already in our government, which is a big part of today's episode, which is our first crack at the alien agenda. So, I'm really excited to talk about it. Today's episode originally was going to be about what was originally like considered. It's called the Nine or the Council of Nine, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is. But as I started digging down deep into the meat of the story, I fell right down the rabbit hole. I was telling Seth earlier, right before we got on, I had about 75 tabs open on various informations and people and stuff that we're going to be talking about today. So I think in all likelihood today is going to be kind of a 2-part episode, where we talk about some really ridiculous, the real ridiculous and the real fun. This is right in my wheelhouse of great shit to talk about.
Speaking of real ridiculous, though, 75 tabs, man.
It
Dude,
was
75, dude, tab anxiety is a real thing. I get it at work, so I have to have several hard resets at work on a daily basis. If I have more than, let's say, I don't know, 10 tabs open on each window because I have 2 monitors at work, I start to get I suffer extreme anxiety and I just have to shut everything down and reset. So I'll X everything out, then the email will come up and some of the other pages that that have to be up when I'm working,
yeah.
and then I go from there. I said, dude, 75 tabs. It's like, at what point is it just sensory overload? How
It's
can you
not.
navigate back to the tab that
Well,
you're looking for?
for those of you who don't know, I have a really ridiculous and completely off the wall setup that it involves 4 monitors. So I have the 3 that sit in front of me, 2 that flank me, obviously, and then there's actually 1 that sits above my main monitor. And I had about 15 to 20 tabs open on each screen, and then my Word document for our outline for today's podcast on the main screen, where I just kind of typed blindly into the night last night. I started doing the research for this last week, and I kind of have actually had. So I'm with you on some of this because I've had these tabs open. I've had about 20 of these tabs open for the last week on my computer, and I just breathed in, hiccuped, and burped all at the same time. I'm glad that made it into the mic really loudly.
You sounded like a mom who like saw her kid about to run into the street,
Oh
but then
God,
stop.
yes.
That's the noise that a mom would make.
I can't even describe to you.
You
Yeah.
had a piece of phlegm
I
that
think
sucked
must have
in.
been what that was. I can't really describe to you really what happened there, but it was a gasp at how great our episode is going to be. Oh, that was strange.
That was,
But I did have some. We're not editing that.
maybe
out.
figuring out what that was as part of the alien agenda.
There you go, man. You see, they're in on it. The government is about to triangulate my position, which they could probably do most easily. But yeah, so I've had some minor tab anxiety, and normally I'm pretty good. I don't have to have this many tabs open, but I really wanted to make sure that I had our tabs open so that if we got into a quandary, that I could pull up the information.
Oh,
that I
you
was
could
looking for.
frantically look for the correct tab.
Reference. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. I only have 19 tabs open right now, so we're good. I closed a bunch of the tabs. We're fine.
They should create a tab index program that is just an additional tab that's like separate that overlays everything. You know what I wish computers did is, you know how like sometimes I'll have like, if I'll be like, let's say I'm like watching a golf tournament at work or something, I'll like, because I can watch a golf tournament passively and still work productively, but sometimes I wish I could lay that tab over like I could make a quarter size of the screen and then lay it over the, like the Google Chrome windows I'm working on or
Like a
something.
picture in picture, like you can do on your phone.
Right, because
My phone is able to do that. I'm sure that there's a computer program that allows you to do that.
there probably is, but the problem is that then if I, once I click on that window behind, the window where I'm watching the golf tournament, then that golf tournament goes behind everything. You see what I'm saying? So I always have to like shrink, and I end up wasting real estate because I have to shrink down the window that I'm working in to give the golf tournament or whatever I'm watching the width to where if I'm playing around on the other tab, it doesn't then fall behind it.
I
So
think
I wish
what
there
you
was
need is
something.
another monitor. Get yourself 4
Yeah,
monitors, buddy.
I'm not gonna be a three. Well, at home it's not a problem, but when I'm specifically when I'm watching major golf tournaments at work, which is 4 times a year, so it's not something that's too
Sure,
rough.
sure. I think 3
I've
monitors
learned
at
I've
work would
learned
be
to
a slightly
adapt.
overkill.
I shouldn't
Yeah.
I shouldn't say I learned to adapt. I've learned to overcome.
Ooh, I am overcome. Like in 2001, where Live put out the song about 9/11.
Where Live put out the saddest song of all time. Funny story, that song wasn't written for 9/11. It just fucking fit so perfectly that it became like the anthem for 9/11.
We'll never forget, buddy.
Can
Never
you
forget.
believe that?
Yeah.
I never will forget. I feel this is gonna sound weird to say. I feel very fortunate that I'm old enough to remember that day and the importance of it and just the hugeness of it. I work with kids that are in their early 20s and they obviously they have no recollection of that. I mean, that was 2001. I was 15. Those kids were 3.
Yeah. There's
And it,
there's always like a generational thing, like our parents had the Kennedy assassination and kind of we
Mhm.
had this, and I hope that we don't have another one that I have to remember, because obviously our parents and they will always remember both of those situations. But yeah, there seems to be something that is always remembered. You kind of remember your day and place at that exact time.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely an unexpected event, typically between two human forces. Because you think about the earthquakes that were, what was that? I think that was 2008 where that caused that Indonesian tsunami that
Oh, the
killed
tsunami, yeah,
180,000 people. Like
it's
what?
crazy. Yeah,
Like what the
that's
hell? Like
that's
that
mind
number
blowing.
that number is so large that it's almost like you hear about, like, obviously in the United States, like there are several mass shootings now, like it's almost become an epidemic. um
I think
and,
we're certainly past epidemic on that one.
I would agree with that. And you hear about, like, oh, another 8 people are killed in Dayton, Ohio, or something like that, and then like that number just feels crazy. Like, man, that's 8 people, that's 8 lives, that's 8 families. And just like, they're out one night and then they're done. And then you hear 180,000, and it's such a vast number that like you can't even properly comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy there. It just like becomes something separate from what it is. It's too big for the mind to understand, which, not to go on such a dark segue, but that's kind of what aliens and the universe and any potential alien agenda and the nine, that's kind of how that feels as well. Just too big to really comprehend, if true.
Right. Great segue. I'm sure the people in Indonesia haven't necessarily forgotten. It'd probably be, it's mind-boggling number to say the least, for sure. So,
Yeah. And
all right.
I'm not afraid of I'm not necessarily afraid of offending our Indonesian listeners. I would venture to guess that we don't have any of them.
Certainly not at this point.
Mm-mm.
Maybe one.
You think so? You think one
There's
of
a
the
lot of
maybe
people in this world. Okay, I think that the odds are in our favor.
Well, you know what? Maybe we
Well,
can
I
get
think the odds aren't
maybe
impossible. I shouldn't say not in our favor.
maybe we can get this podcast up to 15 views, and then we got uh, a non-zero chance that we'll have an
Fair
Indonesian
enough. Fair enough.
listener.
Hey, our first episode is crushing. Nearly 100 views.
Nearly 100 views. That is actually pretty good for
Yeah.
two people who have done no active promotion other than, like, you have the Twitter page and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and you're
um,
failing miserably at updating the Instagram. I saw. So we're doing well.
I struggle to be fair. I have an Instagram page with almost 50,000 followers that I haven't posted to in months as well. So
That's
it's
true.
not-
You literally had to post like a week ago. Not even a week ago. I liked it
Oh,
on my own personal Instagram account.
I'm sorry, that's fair. I did post my cousin's daughter had caught a fish that I posted, but before that it was several months. So it's not just the Decrypted podcast. I'm just very lazy with social media.
Which is
So,
about to
no.
change. We assure you, it's about to change. Social media, not either one of our strong points, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
but
You know,
what-
it's something that we both have learned how to do, but it's definitely neither of our favorite things.
Once the salmon run is done, I think we're going to be a lot more involved in what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yep, I don't know, I
definitely
just
more
kinda had a
involved.
I just had a weird moment in my brain. So yeah. So let's get back to
Not
the
as weird
topic
as
at hand
that
today.
sound
So
that
we're
your
going to
throat
talk
made.
about our first crack at the alien agenda and kind of everything that ties along with that. This episode, again, it was centered originally around this topic of the 9. I probably berated Seth with enough text messages where he's probably sick of talking about it already, but we are going to talk about it a little bit more. And like I said, just kind of stick with us. I can't imagine alien episodes being very like on the nose, like organized is the word I'm looking for. So it's going to seem disorganized, but that's really just part of the conspiracy. Is the more disorganized it is, the more organized it truly is to throw you off the scent about how the government is working with there's a shadow government within our own government that is working with other governments around the world to successfully breed us with aliens and keep their species going, so that we're gonna be good to go when we have to live on Mars eventually, because we're completely destroying this Earth. They're just burning the Amazon rainforest down for fun at this point, I think. So,
Well, let's get going. Because
Let's
I
get
have
going.
things to say.
so we're gonna start in the year of 1952, where I Love Lucy has now broken the record for most viewed show at one time. Guess how many people watched the I Love Lucy show on one night at one time in 1952?
600.
10 million people.
Whoa,
I was very blown away by that number. So
that's a lot.
yeah, Puerto Rico kind of basically becomes the 51st state in 1952, although we haven't really given a shit about it since then. The United States bans Charlie Chaplin from returning to the U.S. after a very successful United Kingdom comedy run. Don't have any idea why. And the U.S. successfully detonates the first hydrogen bomb in the Marshall Islands in the Central Pacific Ocean. And that fact will come back a little bit later as we kind of talk about it. But currently, under the authority of the U.S. government, it begins its work on what we call Project Penguin, also known as the Edgewood Arsenal Human Experiments, not to be confused with Project Paperclip. But during this time, the U.S. Army Chemical Corps conducted classified human subject research for the purpose of evaluating impact low-dose chemical warfare, as well as psychic telepathy and manipulation on military personnel.
That's a mouthful.
It was a lot of reading. It's one sentence on my outline. So, experiments were conducted by the U.S. Army on more than one occasion. This isn't conspiracy. This has actually happened, using psychotropic drugs such as LSD and mushrooms and DMT to see the effect of what it would be like on our soldiers, basically in the effort to create a super soldier. So you could put
Of course.
you're familiar with the Manchurian Candidate, like you basically breed this one person from childhood to become involved in another country, and then all of a sudden we can flip the switch and they can kill what was the Zoolander, the prime minister of, I'm sure
the
that's
Prime Minister of Malaysia.
yeah, that was where my brain went to immediately. So
Malaysia Prime
that
Minister.
is a very real thing that's been going on, and probably, in as much as they want to denounce it, I'm sure is very, very much still going on in the government today.
It's kind of like a more nefarious version of what they did in Sparta, basically training kids from birth to be
Yeah.
super soldiers, but now instead training them to be super soldiers / spies.
Yeah.
Spartans couldn't be super spies because they all had too many abs.
Yeah, they had 47 abs, and it was
Yeah,
an
they
odd
would-
number
they-
because they had that one ab that's like right below your pecs. It's just like a unit ab.
Yeah,
very
it's like
weird muscle.
larger, flatter testicles that are
Yeah.
above your normal testicles.
Yeah.
On either side, flanking either side of what I can only imagine the Spartans as having gigantic cocks.
You and
But
I
also-
have no idea what abs are, so.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, I think they exist under what I have on my midsection, But yeah, I mean, like Spartans couldn't be spies because they're not fitting in with any other race or breed of people.
True.
They all. I mean, it's Gerard Butler, dude.
Right. Gerard Butler, who was in Dracula 2000. He's a skinny little bastard. But moving on, so yeah, you're totally right. So this has been going on, I mean, you could argue since the beginning of, time, I guess, human time. Like there has been this effort to kind of create the perfect human, to kind of create the perfect mold, to then, but it's all for military technology, right? For military. So
Hitler took a shot at it.
yes, and we can actually talk about that, Dr. Mengele. So in an experiment conducted inside a copper vault known as the Faraday cage, which is a real thing, it's an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields, a man named Karl Pukerik, who would later become famous for his work with this psychic called Uri Geller, and Uri Geller is somebody we could also maybe cover later, but we're not.
Yeah,
gonna
we can talk about Uri. You don't think we'll get to Uri tonight?
I don't know. Do you know about Uri Geller?
I definitely know about Uri Geller.
That's cool. I didn't. Awesome. I don't think we're going to talk too much about him tonight. You can touch back on it if you have relevant information on it, but we're probably not going to get to him tonight.
Well, I know about Uri Geller through James Randi. So to say that I know about Uri Geller is not to say that I look upon Uri Geller with any favorable intent.
Right. And I might have to agree with you on that one. But so this guy, Karl Pukerik, and he has I cannot pronounce his Andrija, which is like ends up being his nickname. We're just going to call him Pukerik, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He would go on to test the abilities of like known and credited, quote, credited kind of channeling like psychics, and they would have these quote channeling sessions, and he would put them in this Faraday cage so that like there was no technical interference. Now somebody who worked with this guy Pukerik, I watched an interview with him on an Ancient Aliens episode, and he kind of talks about how this was very serious. There was no these seances or whatever, there was no holy water and there's no candles lit. This was a on science, on personal record thing. So again, this part of this existed. So one night, Pukerik invites this guy. His name is Dr. G.G. Vinod, and he is like a Indian guru, basically, and known for being incredibly gifted at the art of channeling. And he invites this guy in, and he says, listen, you're going to sit down. We're going to start doing some channeling sessions. And they channel what is called the Nine. And the Nine is a reference to the 9 gods of Egyptian. Well, there's several, and we'll go over that later. But this one, he talks about the 9 deities of the Egyptian gods, called the Ennead, which is Ennead, the Council of 9, and they are the great keepers of knowledge and wisdom for all mankind, according to Egyptian testimonies here. Okay. When he speaks to these guys, he channels these guys. This is where the story gets kind of murky. So, in one hand, you have this guy, Dr. G.G. Vinod, at the military establishment in Maryland doing this. But then there's other sightings that this experiment was actually taking place on Dr. Pukerik's own personal laboratory site, like in the woods of Maine somewhere. So it's kind
of
the
article I read said that it was they went to a cabin in
Maine, right?
In a rural area of Maine.
Right. So now, again, this is just fitting the repertoire of UFO and alien lore. We have quite a huge discrepancy in where these two stories come from. But I like to believe the idea that you were going with. This is actually kind of a cabin in Maine, because this isn't actually the first time that Vinod and Pukerik worked together. But for the sake of our story and for the sake of the moment, we're going to talk about what's going on here. So in 1953, on June 27th, 9 people, none of which are government officials, meet in an isolated cabin in the woods just outside of a town called Glen Cove in Maine. And they are going to conduct this seance that's led by this Dr. Vinod. Now, Vinod claims to have contacted the Ennead, which is that council of 9 deities, and they would go on to reveal themselves as, quote, the elders of the world, and that their job was to ensure that mankind carried on so that they themselves then could also continue living. If you want to know who the Ennead are, they are, again, a group of 9 Egyptian gods who speak directly to the pharaoh. Now, back in the days of pharaohs in Egypt, the pharaoh's word was law, obviously. He's the king, whatever you want to call it. And because he was the only one that could speak to the Ennead, basically made anything the pharaoh said the voice of the gods, So right. He had a ton of play here. The 9 gods were the first one was Atun, A-T-U-N, or Atun, and he was the first one to speak with Dr. Vinod, and he is considered the creator god, or the god of solar discs. The other ones are Osiris, the god of good; Isis, the mother of all the kings; Seth, the god of evil; Nephidius, goddess of the dead; and we also have Nut, goddess of the sky; and Geb, goddess of the land; and Tefnut, goddess of the water. I think I'm missing one. Oh yeah, god of the winds, God Shu. So
got you. I can tell you that I was, when I read that article,
were you excited that your name was mentioned?
I was so excited. Not only was my name mentioned, but Seth, God of Evil. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty fucking metal.
That's the metal. That's the metalist thing we have. And once we talk, there's another cool metal story within our story as well. So
I'll tell you what though, if Emily knew that I was named after an Egyptian god, she would have surely thought that I was named after the god of wind, because I break it constantly.
Heyo, he's talking about farts. That's what we bring to you here.
I have a really, really funny, really quick fart story from last night.
It better be the fastest story ever. I'm on a roll here.
Went to bed, was lying in bed next to Emily.
His wife.
Yeah, my wife. And so I was like on my side and she was behind me, and she had like just turned over to like kind of go to bed, and I farted like pretty loudly and intensely, and I knew it was going to smell. So I tried to take the heavy comforter blanket we had on the end of the bed and like cover it and trap it. But in fact what I did was create a wave of air that pushed the fart smell
right into her face
immediately. Like I mean dead into her face. And she reacted immediately, because it was one of those rough ones that probably smelled before they even came out. And she was not happy. And usually she's very patient with me and my farting, because I always tell her, I was just like, look, if I don't break wind, then I'm just gonna be walking around with a stomach ache the whole day.
Do you just call it break wind?
No, I call it farts. I don't know why I'm calling it break wind. Actually, I'm calling it break wind because I've always thought that term was really funny. Yeah. But that's my story. Don't want to sidetrack you too much. Carry on.
No, fair enough. I had a funny fart story, but it's going to take too long. So now in our version of the story, with the seance of the Ennead, they are quoted as saying, "I am the beginning, I am the end, I am the emissary. But the original time I was on this planet was 34,000 of your years ago. I am the balance, and when I say I mean because I am the emissary for the 9. This is not I, but it is the group. We are 9 principles of the universe, yet together we are one." So, pretty cool. Pretty, again, a little heavy metal for you. They would also claim that they were a collective of extraterrestrial beings, so beyond just the gods. They were a collective of extraterrestrial beings that lived in a massive hovering ship above Earth, and that the 9 people who had gathered around Dr. Vinod were chosen to be their, quote, promote their agenda on Earth. Now, the agenda was to save mankind from itself, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more too. And at the head of the episode, I kind of mentioned that the U.S. had just kind of created the hydrogen bomb, and a bomb, which is a bomb, and I looked this up, which I think is, for some reason, I thought the atom bomb and the hydrogen bomb were kind of just the same thing. I thought they were just an atomic bomb, Right,
but yeah.
Not true at all. And now I didn't know this either, but we've never used a hydrogen. Nobody has ever used a hydrogen bomb. And this is a big thing that the Koreans had just created, this hydrogen bomb.
Is the hydrogen bomb the Manhattan Project? Or was that originally the atomic bomb?
I think that's what the atomic bomb.
Or I'm sorry, a nuclear bomb.
I think that's nuclear fission. And I wish I could speak. A lot of purists here. I wish I could speak more on the Manhattan Project, and we could do literally. I would fucking love to do an episode on the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, we should talk about the Manhattan Project, just because, like,
a ton of fucking alien agenda shit that's kind of filled in there. But I don't know enough about it that I'd be comfortable with having an educated conversation with it.
The only reason I brought it up is because there's a very famous theoretical physicist. His name is Richard Feynman. I think he's long dead. He died in the 90s. But anyhow, he's one of those guys. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube and stuff. I really like listening to him speak, even though I don't understand what he's saying, because he's actually really funny, and just listening to really smart people talk about really smart stuff that I don't understand is fun. It
is fun. I agree. That's actually a ton of fun.
Yeah, and so there's Well, I'll actually put the link for this in the YouTube description because there is a hour-long um lecture that he gives, or really like I wouldn't call it a lecture because it's not really meant to be educational. It's just he talks to a group of like younger peers, I guess, like people that work in the sciences, about his early days at Los Alamos and how he goes from Los Alamos to working on the Manhattan Project, or working on the Manhattan Project at least in part at Los Alamos. And Los Alamos is, a science lab in Southern California, I
Hmm.
think,
Yes. Yep.
where they work on some obviously, very cutting edge scientific projects and stuff
And a
like that.
very,
So
very rumored to be heavily involved with a lot of UFO activity and alien agenda. And it's
with
also
with
listed
their
as, yeah, it's also listed as one of the places that they took one of the bodies to area from, excuse me, from the Roswell crash. Now, a lot of times people will like credit the Area 51. That's kind of where they apparently originally took the bodies, and then those bodies were taken from Area 51 and actually spread across the country. So there's a Dayton, Ohio location. There's a location in Colorado. There's the location that you were just talking about in Los Alamos. Like, I think the Los Alamos was the one where they took the alien that survived the crash, Edie. The Oh my god, dude. Yes. All right. Yes. Here we go.
full
Now we're
circle.
talking about it. Yeah. No, I'm getting fucking sweaty. So, uh, yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit more. We'll do use part two. You're getting a little ahead of us, but I love it. I fucking love it. Let's go. So we're gonna get back a little bit to what we were talking about. Now we just had created the hydrogen bomb just shortly before a lot of this is kind of said to have gone down. Now again, we have to talk about too that this isn't the first time that Dr. Vinod or whatever has worked with Dr. Pukarik. And on New Year's Eve in 1952, this was the claim of contact with the Nine, where again the conversations are kind of muddled. Either they're covered up with the government stuff because, again, one story tells us that this happened in a government location in Maryland. Then we have the one that where you and I were reading from, which is in Maine. But to get back to it, it might be kind of easy to dismiss a lot of this. So these 9 people get together. All right, let me slow down here. These 9 people get together and they start talking about, or excuse me, they conduct this this seance, right? And he starts speaking to this.
Right.
Yeah, so they speak to this guy through the doctor, through the Ennead or whatever, and they explain how they are the 9 gods of the Egyptian this, but beyond that, they're actually these 9 extraterrestrial beings that are kind of sent to live or to monitor us as humans and make sure that that we aren't destroying ourselves, because again, now we've already dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they've seen the devastation that can do. So that's basically kind of where the whole thing starts now, where these aliens kind of start coming in and going, Jesus Christ, you guys are fucking this whole thing up. You guys got to slow down. So that's where the 9 kind of come back together, and we can kind of get back to this a little bit more later. But basically a lot of this alien agenda is, and a lot of people believe that the aliens kind of started coming here and visiting us after these things because they wanted to see what happened. This kind of created a little bloop in the universe, and they were like, what the fuck was that? What's going on here? Now, you can talk about how we are kind of like the little ant farm for the universe, that long thousands and thousands of years ago, the aliens came down and bred with ancient Sumerians and basically left us to our own demises to see what would happen to us going forward. And there's also, you can subscribe to the theory that refugee aliens came here from another solar system because they could no longer reproduce because of what had been going on their planet, and then subsequently they were trying to interbreed with us so that they could continue on surviving at the same time. Now, again, a lot of this sounds madness, right? You could call it madness, or for the sake of your sake, it's the biggest load of horseshit since the Tuck Rule incident involving Tom Brady in the 2001 division playoffs against the Raiders, right? But
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always just think this stuff with aliens, like, because it's something that we just don't know yet. Like when if anyone here has listened to our previous podcast, they kind of know my stance on like the terrestrial stuff or like Bigfoot and stuff like that. And basically, my stance is that I'm open to it, but probably not. I'm definitely not convinced. Like with the alien stuff, it's like space is like we haven't even begun to explore it, and like like what, we're sending out radio frequencies now, like hoping to get a ping back, as though anything that we're going to run into is going to give a shit about a radio frequency, or
Right.
how is that the method that they're even gonna assume is going to come from like some intelligent life? And obviously, you could, this is just so deep, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but basically, yeah, obviously some of the intent of like these beings and stuff seems a little bit outlandish, but at least for me, the idea of intelligent life, either in other solar systems or other galaxies, I mean, to me, I'd venture to say seems likely, let alone
Yeah, I mean, you
not
you
outlandish.
share the same ideal as many very very credible physicists and scholars. A lot of people. There's a lot of area and a lot of room, and there's the Drake equation that talks about how it's like basically mathematically impossible for us to be alone. And then there's another doctor who was teaching at Harvard who like took the Drake equation like way beyond and was basically saying that like there's just no way we're alone, especially certainly involving intelligent life.
There's another one though too that is also very like done by a respected scientist, and this is on the other side that, man, I wish I could recall what this is. It's a relatively popular thing. Like I should be able to pull the name right now out of my head, but I can't. And it basically says, like, after them doing like the test and like some mathematical breakdown, basically saying that it is still very likely that we are alone. And if we aren't alone, life is like infinitesimally rare. And after reading about that a little bit too, I was like, this actually does make sense. I really don't want to believe that, because I want to believe that the circumstances that have come together to somehow create life on our planet, I would be much more excited to find out that it wasn't as far fetched as maybe it could potentially be, you know.
Right.
I
Yeah. I'm definitely in the other side of the category here. I'm fully in belief that there's no way we're alone. We have been being visited by aliens for thousands of years. I think that we are a precursor to a greater life and existence beyond our own solar system and planet. So if you want to really get into it, and we can always do that. Like I think it's a ton of fun. Like that's this right now, and this conversations right here are the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, and not even the alien podcast, like the Decrypted podcast in its entirety. Is this kind of conversation. I love it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm right there with you on aliens. I choose to believe that there is, at the very least, life, maybe like intelligent life, is super rare, and that would like that's fine, because it takes a while to become intelligent, right? But
right.
just like, I mean, microorganisms or anything like that. I mean, like a planet that has water that looks a lot like Earth that doesn't have grass. If a planet has grass, we've done it. There's life. You know what I mean? So it's like
Right.
we're not always talking about something that like squiggles and squirms or speaks or communicates. Like if we go somewhere else and find out
There
that,
are microorganisms that are
sure,
alive, and that is life, and that is able to kind of shake what we know and consider life to its very core. And I'm
well,
very excited at
absolutely.
the
I mean,
idea.
think about, like, I mean, the second that we find that there is a plant on a different planet, it literally changes everything about what we know. It
Yeah.
changes everything.
Yeah, and
So
that's assuming,
that'll be an
and
exciting
that's
day.
too, even I like the idea of like it doesn't have to be carbon based, like it could be based on all kinds of these
Silicon
other
based or
things.
something like
Yeah,
that. It's like some people
absolutely.
say it could be silicon based.
So
Silicone.
it's whatever. I think silicon is a valley, but
Right.
whatever,
That's
however
right.
you
That's
want to
right. I
pronounce it.
always get the two mixed up. Yeah, but anyhow,
Poop,
carry on
silicone,
in the
and
story.
boobs. No, you're
I
good.
sidetracked here, but
You're good. This is why we did the Decrypted podcast. So let's keep going. So now the people that are involved in this seance, these aren't just 9 turds, right? These aren't just 9 people who got together. It's not like you and I called up to some people we went to SIU with and we're like, yo, you just want to go in a room and see if this turn off the lights and
you want to do a seance?
pull up
The
on a
first
Ouija board.
response, the first response to that question would be, "Is there going to be alcohol?"
Yeah. Or where do I get the weed you've been smoking? Because it sounds amazing. So yeah, totally agreed. So these 9 people, and we're gonna go over who they were and some of them, and we're gonna kind of go over what they did, and this is a lot of fun. So I thought this is kind of again the reason we started with the 9 and just who these people were and their involvement with major governments and the conspiracy at present. So the people who were involved in what it was going to be called, what will eventually be called the Round Table Foundation by Dr. Pucharich, were Henry and Georgia Jackson, Alice Bouvier, Marcella DuPont, Carl Betts, Vonnie Beck, Arthur and Ruth Young, and the good doctor himself, Mr. Pucharich. So now the 9, or the Council of 9, or the Round Table Foundation, however you want to call it, would not stop necessarily there as far as members went. They did have several incarnations of the 9, as far as they had various scientists from the Stanford Research Institute, and even Gene Roddenberry himself, the creator of Star Trek, whose involvement we can also talk about probably in episode 2. But for now, we're going to talk about the original 9. So first, one name that should stand out for everybody, DuPont. Marcella DuPont, who was at one time married to Alfred Victor DuPont of the incredibly wealthy DuPont family, was the daughter, of the DuPont family. So right there, you have a ton of money, and not talking like this is beyond Bill Gates money, if I recall correctly. I mean, they are a billionaire family, and they have been around these are one of the Rockefeller type families that have been in the U.S. who probably own the government and have for the last 60 to 70 years. So you have a ton of money involved in there. We have
the DuPont family was at the time one of the richest families on the planet.
Yeah, making their fame in gunpowder, I think originally.
Yeah, maybe originally, but interestingly enough, and I think that you're probably going to end up going this direction of what they do now. But I mean, now they're just like a pushing forward scientific innovations company today, and obviously they have, it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah,
and
so deep.
Yeah, but if you could imagine what the DuPont company would be doing after the seance and what we're going to learn about tonight, it would be something along these lines.
Yes, the penetration, the level of penetration that the DuPont family holds in our United States is pretty much second to none. So now we have Alice Bouvier, which is also known as Ava Alice Muriel Astor, which is the daughter of Colonel Jacob Astor IV, who died aboard the Titanic. Probably next to Rose, who was apparently too fucking stingy to get the fuck off that door to let anybody ask.
There was room on that door.
There was so much room. She's such a bitch. Leonardo, we miss you, or Jack, whoever you were.
She was cold. Give her a break. I do
She was a one-time wife to a Prince Ivan Sergeyevich Oblonsky of a Tsarist family and an army officer who was a major operator of the OSS during World War II. Now, again, you talk about 1950s, World War II is not that far away. Or hasn't been over, rather, for that long. We are in the heart of the Cold War against Russia. Again, a lot more money and a lot of government influence and government pull, not necessarily in our government specifically, but certainly in governments around the world.
Sure.
Now we have Ruth Young and her husband, Arthur Young, who, I'm not sure if you know who Arthur Young was, a famed inventor and philosopher who worked for the Bell Corporation, and he helped create the Bell helicopter, which was literally the first helicopter ever. That's what I Googled when I looked it up. It's like
interesting because I read that article, and it said he was instrumental in helping to invent the Bell helicopter. And I didn't Google anything because I read the article pretty quickly.
Yeah,
but
you've done it.
I was like, what the hell is a Bell helicopter? So, okay, interesting. The first helicopter.
It's like literally, it's like that, the picture of a helicopter where they're like literally sitting in what looks like a lawn chair, and they have a big stick in front of them between their crotch, and it's like open, like there's no like glass on it, and there's there's the two propellers and the extended propellers. So it's just like a very primal looking style helicopter, but a helicopter nonetheless. And this guy would go on to be a helpful inventor to a ton of things. His wife, who is Ruth Young, was I'm totally lost from I was going crazy there. I was getting excited.
Take your
Ruth
time,
Young
sit
was
back.
born Ruth Forbes of the very wealthy and famous Forbes family. You know who the Forbes family are, correct?
Sure.
Would you enlighten me?
Well, the Forbes family were famous investors,
Yes.
or at least the main Forbes was a famous investor.
Yes.
And they went on to become like Forbes magazine, and I would argue that they are the most famous name in money management and personal wealth.
Absolutely. And you're talking money upon money upon money, just like the DuPonts, you know.
Forbes is a name that, like, you even take what they've done away from it. Forbes just sounds like a rich, highfalutin family.
It sounds like a lot of people wear monocles. Even the women
Yeah.
somehow now wear monocles in that family.
Everyone's
but yes.
just rocking one lens. with
Yeah.
no frame.
Madam, do you even need your monocle to see the caviar? So, so far you got a lot of people with a ton of money and a ton of government influence just randomly deciding to show up with fucking Mr. Pukarik here and have themselves a little candlelit seance with another doctor channeling 9 gods of extraterrestrial beings in the middle of the woods in Maine. That doesn't seem too
Well, it's like, it's a little weird because it's like, yeah, I don't think that you can necessarily assume that just because all these people are influential and wealthy, that it adds necessarily authority to what they've done, or like takes away any weirdness, because like there are eccentrics. I mean, there are a lot of weird rich people.
yeah, like me, but I'm not rich. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's an interesting group that they have put together here.
Right.
But like at the same time, when I first read it, I was just like, okay, well, these people could all be at a dinner party. I mean, they like they could know each
that's
other.
true.
And then like Dr. Poops on Dick could talk about this Indian soothsayer that he has and be like, hey, hey, Claire, John, Donna, whatever their names are, come out and perform this seance, and we can show you something that only the upper echelon of society has the ability to
Right.
witness. And they could be like, all right, cool, let's go check it out. So like at this point, I don't necessarily think that like they're all like in on something. I think they can just be a bunch of rich people that were just like, all right, my interest has been piqued.
Yeah, kind of like
Go
have you ever
together.
seen The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp? It's just a bunch
yes.
it's just a bunch of rich old naked people doing satanic worshiping. That's kind of like what I always laugh about and think about stuff like this. I'm going to go watch that movie. I think I'm going to watch that movie tonight. I think it was a really cool movie.
Dude,
Again, one of Johnny Depp's better performances before he just became a 74-year-old man who wears bracelets and paints his fingernails.
Dude, he has become so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
He was like
And he still has it in him, like, to be a good actor, but he's just accepted. I know, like, look, when you have decent actors that get themselves into money problems, they start taking horrible roles. Johnny Depp did that by taking on roles that paid an insane amount of money, but for the most part, very horrible roles. With the exception of like he actually got lucky, I think, with Jack Sparrow, who like that role was
Yeah,
perfect
I
for
think
him.
by the
And he
third
made that role
by the third movie I was all right.
Yeah,
let's move
it went
on, but-
downhill, but like that one, you can say like, okay,
I
Johnny
agree.
Depp, like you killed
Dun,
it there.
dun, 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 dun. That's such
Yeah,
a such a great score to those movies.
Yeah, but and then you have like someone like Nick Cage, who wasn't necessarily, and like Nick Cage is a good actor. I don't care what anyone says. He is a good actor. He has good roles. He's an Academy Award winning actor.
Yeah, like Leaving Las Vegas, probably my only is that what it's called?
Yeah, Leaving Las
Or-
Vegas. But like,
whatever the one
Matchstick-
where he's like
Matchstick Men
just
was
a
good.
horrid drunk.
Yeah, that's Leaving Las Vegas.
Such a good one.
Matchstick Men was good. Weatherman was good. Lord of War was good. Like within the right role. Like he's a good actor.
He was gold
he
in
can't-
Face Off.
Yeah, he's-
peach.
And even movies like that, I would say, are like total wins for him. But then like he wasn't in a position where Johnny Depp, where like Hollywood was throwing him the biggest paychecks of any actor out there. So like
Sure.
he would just accept shit but make 25 million. Nick Cage wasn't at that point, so he had to accept shit and make like 90 grand. And
Like
then
an
you
8
had
millimeter?
movies. The 8mm was before he started
and Snake
taking-
Eyes.
Also before.
And
Also
that movie
before.
where he talks to the waitress about winning $1 million.
I don't know what that one is, but
It's a good
like
one. I think
it
it's
was like I think it all started with Ghost Rider, and then
oh
it just
my
went downhill
God.
from there. So how you can start with
Please,
Ghost
is he a
Rider and
Marvel
then go
character?
downhill from there?
All right, nerds, let me know. I don't know. I think he's a Marvel character, but for God's sake, can we get a good Ghost Rider movie? I mean, a guy on a motorcycle with a flaming skull head, that sounds like equipment for a great fucking movie.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
should have been way more metal.
God. There should have been a
It
lot
should
more
have
heavy
been
metal
more.
in the movie. Did you know that? Okay, well, we're gonna talk about Nick Cage for 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna digress back to what we were talking about. Nick Cage owns this piece of land in Louisiana, like an ancient Louisiana cemetery, to which he will be buried, and built this monument that is like the size of a small shack. Like, I encourage you to Google what I'm talking about, because it is
I bet
absolutely the funniest thing in the whole world.
I bet it cost $600,000.
It was like literally mind-blowingly expensive.
Yeah, I bet it's one of the millions of reasons that he is so broke. And by the way, I don't know
because
if you're
he's living
laughing-
his best life. He's like, I'm gonna buy this year 1, issue 1 Superman for $3 million. I haven't made a movie in 10 years.
He also bought a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull for $255,000 or something like that. It's like, dude,
so
you're out of
badass.
money. He's out of money, and he's buying T-Rex skulls. And he probably said what every person who's broke and is bad with money said, oh, it's a good investment. It's like, no,
Like
it's not
Beanie
a-
Babies.
Also, so Justin, check out our Discord channel right now, and I posted a picture of
Oh man,
So,
I wish I had
yeah, I
time to
wish
pull that up on the. I think I do. Hold on, I'm gonna. No, I don't.
So-
We have to keep
yeah.
going. We have to keep going.
But
We're
we
gonna
can-
bust.
yeah,
the
but we
limit.
could-
just
we-
Google Nick Cage's role in Hell Rider or whatever the hell.
Ghost
this-
Rider.
Ghost
Is it
Rider.
one Ghost Rider?
Yeah,
I
it was
already
Ghost
forgot the
Rider.
name of it.
Hell Rider's the
It's
name of a
so
really
bad.
awesome Judas Priest album.
It's so
But
bad.
yeah,
This
it's
guy
really-
just posted a screenshot of his character, which is all CGI, just holding a.
It was
flame.
like in the birth of CGI too, though. You know what I mean? Like they made this just when CGI started to get like really good, because that's when, like, in 3 years after this, that's when CGI was incredible. You know what I mean? Like this is just
Yeah,
that precursor CGI. Oh my
Yeah.
god. So let's get back to the topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about Mr. Pukaric, or as Seth liked to refer to, Mr. Poops on Dick, which I didn't hate. He started his career in medical research and was initially interested in biophysics. He was heavily influenced by this wealthy couple, apparently. I don't know if he was sleeping with the wife. And they would kind of become his early benefactors and actually lend him the money to start this laboratory in Maine, which is actually where this seance was. So beyond further reading, the seance wasn't just kind of held in the shack. It was held kind of in the barn that he turned into a laboratory where he would do a ton of his studies. He gets into the psychic field because he meets this clairvoyant, a woman named Eileen Garrett, and she's able to identify this illness that he had as a child that he had been disposed to, apparently. And beyond just that, he was actually able to tell the year and the age that he had gotten this illness from, and so kind of from there it became a lifelong quote unquote obsession with the parapsychology field. So after a brief stint in the military, where again, now you can talk about what he did in the military as far as some of his parapsychology research within Project Penguin and all that kind of stuff. He does kind of, again, go into this field of parapsychology as far as lifetime work. Now, the seance, again, we talked about the seance with Dr. Vinod would not be the first time that him and Pukaric worked together. The conversations are kind of muddled. Again, we talk about government cover-ups, or, you get those papers with all the black lines through them, and there's like a photocopy, and the copy's kind of tilted a little bit because the person making the copy has no idea how to fucking operate a copy machine.
And because he's in a rush, because being
because just like the guy at the beginning of the episode, the government is out to get me. So these people have a lot of high stress in their jobs. We talked about the Round Table Federation, which is that group of 9 that was founded earlier in 1948, and I'm so head dizzy from doing that breathing. I'm gonna fall over. I'm glad I'm sitting down. But so it was founded in 1948 with the aforementioned wealthy elite, along with some pretty other notable individuals. Now, most notably, one-time Vice President Henry Wallace, a known Freemason who served under FDR, and it was, as a matter of fact, Wallace who was responsible for the Great Seal with the Masonic capstone that currently inhabits the backside of the $1 bill, which I have in my pocket, and I'm staring at it right now.
Big things he did.
Yes. Very, again, now we're pulling the government back into it. So all these coincidences don't really rest easy with conspiracy theorists about his connection with the Nine and the contact with the Nine and all this other goofy stuff. Earlier we had mentioned that the Nine were the Egyptian gods that claimed that they were in this massive spaceship that were orbiting Earth. And if you don't really like that theory, we can go into some other possibilities of who the Nine might be. Because guess what? After all, the 9 deities of Egyptian lore are not the only place that the number 9 is so relevant. In fact,
of course not.
Yeah, hell no. In fact, there are several religions and beliefs that center around the number 9. In the Southeast Asia...
So,
go ahead.
Before you carry on...
Yeah.
Do you think that there's also like a number of religions and other things that revolve around the number 8? Because I would venture to guess that there is. I would also venture to guess that there's a bunch of religions and other things that revolve around the number 765432110.
No, it's always an odd number. 8 is probably not. 7 for sure. I mean, you talk about like Old Testament stuff is like all in 7s. The 7 angels, the 7 commandments, or the 10 commandments, obviously, but the 7. There's the 7 layers of hell. Like all this goofy shit. Like, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. There are ancient numbers that people love to work with. And I think the only even numbered one is like 10. But 10 is a good number. That's why. You know, I think it was George Carlin who made the joke, like, nobody would believe the 11 commandments. No, but it's 10. Here's 10 commandments.
I'm not saying that just to be a hater. That doesn't take away from the fact that there are a lot of religions and such that are based around the number 9. So carry on.
Yeah. So in Southeast Asia, in China, every year they have of the 9th lunar month on the Chinese calendar, the 9 Emperors Festival, in which people call upon the 9 emperor sky gods who were considered the original rulers of China. And guess how long the festival lasts? It's in days.
9 days.
9 days! Ding, 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 ding. The 9 gods come from the stars of the Big Dipper, which only has 7 stars, and oversee keeping order on Earth. Now, it's said that the 7 stars that you see in the Big Dipper are represented by 7 of them, and there are 2 hidden ones, which I thought was really funny because it was like, you just picked a constellation. You couldn't even pick a constellation that had 9 stars. You had to pick one of 7 and said there were 2 were hidden.
I was going to say, I'm sure that the fact that the Big Dipper only had 7 stars really pissed off the people that made all this up.
Wait, the other 2 are just hidden. I swear to God, they're up there, though. So
it's like, damn, man, we really wrote ourselves into a corner. Like, what are we going to say about the Big Dipper?
This is back when they had to etch it in stone.
The other 2 are hidden.
They had to etch it in stone. Like, hey, Mark, you only put, there's only 7 stars, you dummy. I don't know why my New York accent is coming through here, but then the other guy's like, oh, shit, okay, all right. Well, the other 2 stars are hidden. Done.
And then you just turned into Bernie Sanders.
Is that how Bernie Sanders starts? Like a Kennedy? I was trying to do like my Mayor Quimby. And then there were 9 stars.
Okay,
I'm not going to do any more impressions.
It seems like they put about as much effort into the explanation behind the Big Dipper as the writers of Game of Thrones.
Heyo! There, I need a heyo button. Heyo! Absolutely, last fucking episode or last season of Game of Thrones.
It was so bad.
It was worse than episode 8, Star Wars. Saying it right now.
I don't know. They were equally bad. But it sucks because Star Wars is one of my favorite things of all time. Game of Thrones is for sure my favorite show of all time, like television show. And it really sucks because I feel like it did kind of ruin it. Like I can go back and watch the previous seasons and they're amazing, but they're not as amazing knowing what it leads to. Like it for sure has taken something away from how good the previous seasons were.
Yeah, there was really something to be said about the first 4 seasons. Like I was fucking in, and then
it was amazing.
Then they kind of were like, "We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, and we don't have a lot of funding left, and everybody wants to go do other things because now they're mega popular. Let's fart out 3 seasons."
Yeah, well, the one thing you said there that was not correct was that they still had plenty of funding. They just didn't really seem to have as much. The writers just seem.
I heard some of the writer, like a lot of the original writers again had left on to do other things. Some of them went to Star Wars. Dun dun dun. Cue the fucking Gopher music.
The two main writers got a Star Wars trilogy or something.
Yeah, their own, I believe. That's correct.
They're doing Star Wars now too. And hopefully they can redeem themselves a little bit, because dude, they were everyone's, everyone loved those guys up through season 4. I mean, they were just like, these guys are killing it.
Yeah, I agree. I never read a single fucking word of the books, but I heard that they did them fabulous justice within the first 4 seasons.
So I did read the books, and not only did I read the books, but I read the books very like I was reading the books at the same time I was watching those first 4 seasons, because I had read the books. The show was already like done, so I like caught up on the show when the books were really, really fresh. And every decision that they made, it seems like was a great decision, because like obviously you can't put a 1,200 page book into a 10 episode or 8 episode or 10 episode season, whatever they were. But they just did such a great job, and the sacrifices they made seemed like the right sacrifices to make. And it was just a pleasure, because even when you watch something that's based off a book, that at the end of it, you will look back and say like, that was well done. It's always like, that was well done for an adaptation. But like Game of Thrones was just legitimately well done. It was just like, man, they really captured this shit.
Yeah, to bring people in who were not interested at all in that kind of form of entertainment was pretty substantial.
Yeah, for sure. But anyhow, we'll go back. Let's talk about Game of Thrones some other time.
Maybe let's digress just a little bit back, and we are about to wrap up this episode, but we have just a little bit more to cover. So, people of the Taoist faith, the Chinese festival of 9 emperors, would channel the gods during this festival in order to appease their gods. Now, guess how many people participated in the channeling ritual?
7.
No, it was 9,
Wait.
you idiot.
No, I was going to say 7, and then 2 were hidden.
Your joke was interrupted by my terrible, terrible timing. Yes. Now, again, back to other religions. Aztec beliefs in their 9 gods, known as the Lords of the Night. Lords of the Night! All right. In my own Norse background, there were 9 gods that survived the most heavy metal of apocalypses. What was it called?
I don't know. I got nothing. I don't know.
Ragnarok. It's also like one of those goofy hipster Iron Man triathlons. But the 9 gods survived the Ragnarok. Buddhist faith, that was a huge mess. The Buddhist faith, the emperor consulted in what were known as the 9 unknown men, who are supposed to hold the knowledge of all mankind. And now, finally, even in Greek mythology, there is talk of what is called the Council of 9, that was created by Zeus as basically the most important of the gods. Now, together they acted as the council governing the rest of the gods and mankind, and their job was to what would be done with mankind. I almost lost my space there. These gods were also actually the only ones that could speak with humans, and often rarely shying away from the idea that they could and will destroy man at their will.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
You hate to see it.
So 9 on 9 on 9 on 9.
So,
right?
Also back in 1870 something, a man by the name of Abner Doubleday invented a game called baseball. And guess how many people are on the field?
9. A lot of people on the team, dude. And how many innings are there?
9.
Holy shit! How many rings were created by man in Lord of the Rings?
Fucking 9, dude. Dude, how many holes are in one half of a round of golf?
And when the first fucking round is 9 holes, baby.
Oh, dude, and then you got the back 9.
Now you're getting into it. Now he's getting into it. I hope at home you're getting into it too. I hope you're sweating like I'm sweating.
How tall should the hoop be in the WNBA?
Ouch. Should be 10 feet if they want to compete with men.
No, we all agree it should be 9. It would be a much better product.
So, I actually thought it was 9.
No, it's 10, and that's why it sucks.
Nobody can dunk. Sadness.
Nobody can remotely dunk.
That's for the fan to decide. Yay! So, now it is widely considered that if you believe much of alien lore, you know that we are nothing more than pods or even a global ant farm, as I had responded to earlier, to the Greys. Now, this idea was given credence to the idea of the Nine in that they are our overlords and watch as we sit and attempt to exist in their figurative snow globe. Now, it's often hypothesized that we are also nothing more than surrogates that are used by multi-alien races to continue the existence of their own races, and it is also said that in the 1950s, refugee aliens came to Earth with a problem, that they could no longer procreate. But this ability to create alien hybrids could help, albeit unwillingly in most cases, prolong their existence. Guess how many alien races there are?
9.
There are 9. I actually think there's only 8. But Pleiadians, Venusians, the Tall Whites, the Greys, the Draconians, the Reptilians, ancient reptilians who were here before mankind, the Anunnaki, the Stargate aliens, and us, humans. Because if you think about it, we are basically aliens to them, are we not?
Yeah, oh, of course, of course. It's just a really funny thought that popped in my head. You said that the aliens came to us with a problem when they couldn't procreate, and then what popped in my head was, that maybe they still could procreate, but their females just stopped fucking them, and they were so distraught by it that they came to Earth to just like try to fuck some of our women, but they were so blue-balled from not being able to fuck their women that they had the first crash in the history of space travel, and they just crashed into New Mexico
1947.
with that, what then became Area 51, all just because the women of that race just went on a sex strike, and they
You know why I think that would have happened? Because their husbands probably let down heinous farts when they were going to bed, and then instead of trying to protect them from the smell, accidentally wafted it straight into their face.
I'm so lucky to still have a wife.
You're only a month into your marriage.
24 hours ago.
So, a member of the Pleiadians, which was at the heart, or the top rather, of the list of the 9 alien species, came to plead with humankind and meet with the heads of governments around the world, asking them to disarm their nuclear weapons in an effort to once again protect each other from ourselves. And one of the men was, by all accounts, named Mr. Valiant Thor. But
Man, for a second there, I thought you were going to say Mr. Val Venus.
Hello, ladies.
That's what he would have been saying to
He
the
would've-
alien women that went on the sex strike.
You would have dropped trow. But we will be carrying on our rest of our alien conversation in part 2 of our first crack at the alien agenda. That is episode 1. We're leaving you with cliffhangers. We're leaving you with questions. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a good one.
Sounds
Good.
good. Yeah, that was fun. Definitely, I'm looking forward to talking more about this stuff. This is a lot more fun than some of the other stuff that we've talked about, at least to me. If I have to hear the Beast of Bray Road one more time, I just don't know what I'll do.
You might shit your pants. Listen, I actually, on the way home, I had to drop a friend off out in Lake Geneva, and on the way home, I took Bray Road home. I specifically got off the interstate and traveled Bray Road, and I'll tell you what, I haven't been down there in many. I could see a beast on that road. I could see it.
Well, was it nighttime?
It was not, no, and nobody caught my car. It was disappointing. It was a disappointing drive.
It was a very normal road, wasn't
Almost like it never existed ever one time in the whole history of things. So yeah. But yeah, so that's our episode 1 of our crack at the alien agenda, our very first talk about aliens on the podcast, and a very one of many, I'm sure. And not as discombobulated, honestly, as I thought it was going to be. I tried to really try to keep us in line. Yeah. I enjoyed your open-mindedness to the conversation much more than I thought it was going to be originally. I had originally gone into this episode assuming for sure you were going to hate it more than the Beast of Bray Road. So,
no, I mean, like okay, what has existed for sure in the past countless times over? Government conspiracies. So, like, I mean, do I think like this is outlandish and probably mostly untrue? Probably, as far as like what this like extra dimensional alien stuff is, but I certainly believe in life on other planets. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here like, how can anyone listen to what you just say and just sit there and say for sure this didn't happen? Because
Yeah,
no one
for sure.
knows.
Yeah, not only did it for sure not happen, it for sure definitely happened. Okay? The conspiracy runs very deep. All right, very deep. And we are just now cracking the surface on what it's going to be like.
I guess episode 2, you'll have to convince me, or maybe even episode 3, because I have a feeling that this one's going to drag on a bit.
A 3-parter? I'm clapping.
In other words,
excitement.
a trilogy.
What? All
and
right.
then if we do a second trilogy and a third trilogy, how
Are we
many
gonna-
episodes does that make?
Bro, is that 9?
Fucking 9, dude.
Are we gonna three-peat the three-peat?
I don't even know.
All right. That's fucking exciting. And guess what? That is the end of today's episode. I fucking love every single one of you that has ever listened to, all 9 of you that ever tune into our podcasts. Just know that we appreciate you all. And anybody else who has the testicular or vaginal fortitude to sit through an hour and 10 minutes of me and this guy just talking, we really do appreciate your stuff. So
like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on our social media accounts. That'll be in the description below, and have a good night, everybody.
yes, you as well. And thank you again very much. We will definitely try to get better at Decrypted Podcast social media, but for now, we are only in its infancy. But again, we do promise to get much better. You got anything else to say, my man?
Nope.
We are out of here, boys and girls. Deuces.